Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Gallowgateshots podcast and YouTube channel. We are back for another match reaction. It's back to back videos and podcasts this week, Scott. So
it is.
As you just heard, I'm joined by Scott. I am Chris, and I will be your host for the next 15-20 minutes. So, Scott, we had a little bit of a discussion about the preview of this game, about which players would be fit, which players would be available for Eddie Howe's selection. And I think majority agreed that Eddie Howe would go with his strongest side available, maybe with a couple of tweaks in there.
Yeah.
I was unbelievably shocked by how strong that starting 11 was. I'm not sure if it was the same for you.
It was. I think I wasn't really expecting, apart from the players who started on Saturday, like your Kieran Trippier's and I'm trying to remember who else it was, but I didn't expect Wilson, I didn't expect Bruno, and I didn't expect Shaw, especially not Shaw, to start. The only surprise that I had was that St. Maximin was on the bench. I thought he'd start with him, but I think that might have had something to do with his minor injury that he brought up in his press conference that maybe he had. But yeah, it was immensely strong, and I think I saw someone put on Twitter that's the first time since the Keegan era we've played our strongest side in a cup game, in an EFL Cup game certainly. It's just nice to see we're trying.
It is. Do you think it's helped that obviously we've had that mid-season break because of the World Cup, that players have, well, most players you could argue that have stayed with the core of the team. I know we went for the trip to Saudi Arabia, but the core of that team was there's a couple of players that are obviously on World Cup duty, like Pope, Trippier, Wilson, Bruno, and Fabian Schär. Fabian lasted the most in the tournament. I think he played a little bit longer than what Bruno did.
Yeah.
But that was the shock for me as well to see Fabian. We knew that Fabian hadn't been training with the lads in the build-up to that cup. Do you think Eddie Howe is just so confident with these lads now that he doesn't need a full week with them? He doesn't need to drill them through every set play that will go through and things like that. He's just full of trust.
I think so. I think it's, he knows the teams that he picks, and you see a trend when he picks certain players, and there's different, not like massively different, but there's different styles in the way they play when there's with that group. And I think he's managed to get to a point now where he's like, okay, if you're in and you're in with this group, we play this way, and if you're in with that group, we play that way. And there's minor tweaks here and there, and I think you can see even when the substitutes come on, they know what they're doing, they know where they're going. There's no like kind of like betting in or like, oh, we're still playing the same way, we've just changed personnel. It's mint. it's just really great to see. And I think, that's all down to him and the time he spends with the players both on and off the pitch, and getting to learn them like more personally as opposed to just like as a professional footballer.
It's great to see from the player's point of view as well that every single player wants to start these games, because I'm under no illusion that Eddie Howe's probably went up to the likes of Fabian and Bruno and said, are you comfortable playing this game, or do you want to wait till the first Premier League game when you're back up to scratch with the rest of the team? And it's credit to them, especially Fabian. Fabian jumps straight in there. He gets absolutely clattered in the first handful of minutes, mind.
Always a head injury with Fabian Schär.
Always a head injury. It is
every time.
But it was great to see. Well, not the collision wasn't great to see, but seeing Fabian in that starting 11. Just to quickly go over some of the match itself and what we discussed on the preview. I think we were all confident that Newcastle would get through to the next round. We're a little bit uneasy about what Bournemouth side would turn up, because we've seen it when they came to St. James's Park that they sat behind the ball and just tried to contain that pressure and hit us once or twice in the game and hopefully score from those chances, which they did do in the last time they came up here. It was a similar game plan from Bournemouth.
It was, and I don't know if apparently there was a virus going through their camp. I think 8 to 10 players were kind of sick moving up the game. Hopefully that was all gone and there was no passing that over to our boys out there. But I think kind of, post-COVID, people take a bit more precautions with that sort of stuff. It was a strong side from them in terms of the personnel, but I don't. You could tell that they hadn't had a full week's worth of training, and maybe their fitness levels weren't up to it. obviously it's quite a long journey. Hats off to the away fans that they had there as well to make that journey, especially when it was rearranged in
last minute,
quite short notice as well. Yeah, to travel all that way up, it's it takes some doing. But yeah, the attacking threat was still there. You know, they did have a few chances. Nick Pope pulled off a couple of good saves when he needed to, and they were getting in and around us. But you could just tell that like, even we weren't getting out of second, third gear at times, and we were. I don't want to say we were dominating, but we had most of the possession. They were happy to sit off the ball. We did find it quite difficult to break them down at times, like we did in the league. And and I think you and I both said it would be 2-0, I think was our predictions. Yeah. And I don't think anyone on that prediction on the preview, predicted like a high score. I think 2-1 was the other scores that were being touted around. So yeah, they're difficult games then, because even after we scored, and we'll come on to the goal in a minute, I've no doubt, they didn't even seem to it didn't open the game up like you'd expect it to. They again just kept sitting back. It was almost, and I don't mean this as any disrespect to them. It was almost like they didn't want to be there, and they were just like, no, we need to concentrate in the league. Let's get out this cup. We'll put a facade on that we're playing playing a strong team, but we're just going to go through the motions. And if they score, the score. If it goes to penalties, we might have a chance to nick it and get through. So it was a strange performance from them. It's not what you'd expect. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is, and it showed later on in the game. I think you could see they were getting even more fatigued throughout that.
Yeah, so one of the words which has been used a lot to describe the performance last night in the cup game is rusty. So it was a very rusty Newcastle United display, which I agree with. Watching the game, yes, Newcastle dominated that game from start to finish. There's nobody arguing against that. But if that's Newcastle at the end of that run that we just went through before the World Cup game, we score 3 or 4 in that game.
Oh yeah,
100%. Of course we do. So I think rusty is a great word to describe that as. That's no offense caused or anything like that to that team, but it is going to take a little bit of time to get back into the swing of things and continue and pick up where we left off. And I think everybody's expecting that. Yes, we had the friendly game just last week, but I think we were all in agreement once again that they really didn't offer much to the opposition, and that really didn't help our cause really going forward, because it would be great to have a more competitive game prior to this cup game. But at the end of the day, we went through to the quarterfinals of the Carabao Cup, so that's all that matters at the end of the day.
It is.
To touch on Scott, you mentioned the goal there, but just before that, it's 0-0 going into half time. There's not much action before that. Like I said, yes, Newcastle have a lot of the ball, couple of chances, but no clear-cut chances really. St. Maximin makes an appearance quite early on in the second half. I think it's 55th.
Yeah, it was like 55, 56 minutes, yeah.
Yeah, he comes on, and St. Maximin, once again, he picked up where he probably was in that friendly game. He looks quite lively at times, and he wasn't scared of running with the ball.
No, it was, I think in the last preview, we talked about the Maxi of old and the Maxi of new, and it was very much the Maxi of new. He was taking on players, he was passing the ball, he was, squaring it, he was linking up with everyone around him. I did feel when he first, I think he came on, he made his first run, and then he seemed to take a little knock, and it wasn't quite running that smoothly. So maybe his slight injury might have got tweaked a little bit, but he seemed to run it off, and he seemed to, pick it up again quite quickly, which was nice to see. He was doing little flicks. He was, doing the, where he blocks the ball and then he'll turn and he'll drop his shoulder and he'll just be away from the players. I think there was one where he'll pick the ball up in the corner of the box and he dropped his shoulder and he was at the byline, and the other players were just like, how's he done that? And then he's squared the ball, and unfortunately there's no one there to knock it in. But it was nice to see him put in a good performance. It was nice to see him work in a team as well, and kind of not be like, I'll take on everyone and pass it on. But we haven't seen that much, if at all, this season, I would say. I think that side of his game has been well and truly drilled out of him by Eddie Howe, which is also nice to see. I mean, it's it's nice to see him also kind of, finish a game and not be limping, not be hobbling around, which is a good sign. So yeah, I'm all for it, and hopefully he can continue. I don't know if it warrants him a start next week, but we'll see. I think Eddie Howe has his teams like he wants to play them and how he picks them, and I think St. Maximin for a team like Leicester is a good impact sub to have.
Yeah, I agree. I 100% agree with you, mate. But more on that on the match preview, which is coming up as well, guys. So if you want to watch the match preview, that'll be available not long after this one as well. A couple of the players which I want to mention: Sean Longstaff, once again, probably one of the best players on the field, getting stuck in left, right, and centre. It's that fluid midfield once again. So Bruno comes in, and Bruno just takes the pressure off everybody else around him. There was a couple of times Bruno holds on the ball a little bit too long, but that's something which we became used to as Newcastle United fans. Now we know we're going to get that from Bruno. There's going to be a couple of times in the game where he's going to lose the ball. That's fine, because he offers so much more everything else through his game. And Willock, once again, looks lively. He really does, mate. I think I mentioned on the last game that Willock has got hopefully a big future at this football club, because I still think we haven't seen the best of him.
Yeah, my one criticism of Willock, and I think it was quite telling yesterday, was he takes too long to grow into a game. I think we were saying in the group chat, the first 10, 15 minutes, he just looked lost. He was, he was making runs, he was looking up, he was misplacing passing, and again, rusty was probably a good term for his performance to begin with. I was surprised it was him who came off when St. Maxim came on that early. I would expect him maybe to have a bit more. Longstaff, again, solid performance. Again, a couple of criticisms of, he can take a bit too long. I think if you watch people talking about how Messi was playing in that World Cup final and he's scanning before he gets the ball and he's scanning again. What I've noticed with Longstaff is he doesn't scan until he gets the ball, and that's it's too late. So maybe he just needs to develop his game a bit to look before.
I love how you've gone from elite football that I compare Sean Longstaff with.
What do you mean? There's no difference, is
there? Messi's doing it, so Longstaff.
Messi, well, you learn from the best, so why not?
It was great to see Almiron back on that right-hand side, just in front of Kieran Trippier, because I know I've said this phrase a couple of times, picking up where we left off, that chemistry that those two have on that right-hand side of the field is irreplaceable for us right now. It really is. It was great to see that same ball, which Kieran Trippier does every single time, where it's a 1-2, then he dinks it over the top, and Almiron gets on that 9 out of 10 times as well. So it was great to see that again, mate.
It was, and do you know what it's nice to see? We also talked about the triangle between him, Trippier, and Bruno. That was also happening with Longstaff, because as Longstaff was getting focused, I think Bruno was sitting back a bit more in this game. He was playing more as the 6 role than the 8 role. Longstaff was linking up with the 3 of them as well. So it was nice to see. Obviously, he should have scored. I don't know what happened to that chance that he had. It looked like he kicked his right foot with his left foot, and
couldn't get his position right. That's all that it was.
Yeah, I think it was probably harder to miss that one, but it is what it is. Luckily it wasn't important. We were 1-0 up at the time. Should have been 2-0 up, very arguably, and probably even 3 if you think about the penalty shout as well. But yeah, I think I haven't read it yet, but there's an interview that George Carlton's done with Miggy about how he's playing in his performance. So I'll look forward to reading that tomorrow at some point. But yeah,
is he doing more? I saw that he's done more Craig Hope as well. Has he just been doing the rounds?
Maybe it's Hope. Maybe I was reading the wrong name. But yeah, there's an interview with Miggy doing the rounds that I think it came out like an hour ago. If that.
Yeah, I think it's Craig Hope. I think it's Craig Hope. That one. Well, I think just because you mentioned it there, mate, the penalty shout, but what I want to focus on really is the disallowed goal. Callum Wilson has the ball in the back of the net quite early on, really, and it's the referee gives it. The linesman takes about a minute after the players have celebrated to put the flag up.
Yeah.
It was strange all around. And if we're looking back on the replays now, I think we're quite undecided that if Willock does touch that ball. I think he probably doesn't. But there's a movement in his leg, whether that's towards the ball, away from the ball, or just the motion of when he's fell over. We don't know. So I think even if VAR had been in place, I think they probably would have ruled that out because of Willock's position and how close the ball was to him. If we move on to the goal itself, it's very lucky for us to get that goal. It's a great ball in the box by Trippier, and I think it's Wilson behind the defenders who's causing an issue, as he does every single time when he's in that box and the ball is lifted in. It's a strange goal. It really is. For him to score that goal that way, it's very strange.
It is. It's. I think there was a couple of times when he went ahead the ball and it just come off an obscure angle. It was almost like he's got a hexagon for a forehead. It was weird. It was one of those ones where I think if he hadn't have went for the ball and did what he did, Wilson's heading it in anyway. There. So he's in a lose-lose situation there. It was
a couple of times after that as well, mate. They nearly scored another own goal not long after.
And it was the same player.
Smith, wasn't it?
Yeah, Smith. He kicked it and it went, I think it went behind him or an obscure angle or something. It was a great ball by Trippier. I mean, we love to see those balls coming in. And like I say, Wilson was in the right place. It was just there was someone in front of him who nicked it off him. I think going back to the disallowed goal, when I seen it, I was like, Willock's offside there. Because he'd fell past the last man. And I also think it's Longstaff who was alongside him. He was also offside, but he was nowhere near the ball. And I think had Willock been on his feet, it would have been fine. But the fact he's fallen and the way he's fallen, he's not interfering with the play in the fact that he's touched the ball, but his presence being there. And I think we've had this with the Newcastle goal that was that wasn't disallowed a few weeks ago, and I can't remember which one it was, but the player hasn't interfered with the goalkeeper. But there, Willock, where he is, the goalkeeper's like, well, I don't know who's going for. So I think he's, and if you want to get like into the technicalities of it, he's interfered with that part of the game, but he hasn't touched the ball. So it was a weird one because there's no VAR. And I think the linesman probably didn't realise that, which is why he didn't put his flag up and why he didn't so long. Because I mean, it's two Premier League teams playing at St James's Park. You're like, oh, they've got to have VAR, but I think that comes in the next round. The quarters and the semis, along with the replays and the everything else that comes with them. So it was interesting. And then obviously we've got the penalty shout, which I mean, there's a shot, the ball's going on target, it hits his arm. I don't think it matters how close you are. If you interfere with that and it's off your arm, that's a penalty.
What happens in that shout, mate? The defender's arm goes behind his back, then it comes back out, then hits the ball. For me, once again, if VAR's it, that's given as a penalty. Because his arm's behind him, then it comes back out, and so there's a movement towards the ball. In that, so I agree with you that's a penalty all day long.
Yeah, it was a weird one. The referee wasn't given much to us. And to be fair, by the end of the game, he wasn't given much to them either.
It was more of a friendly game. He refereed that as if, like I said, it was a friendly. I think it's more who could have had the yellow card early on in the game. The amount of fouls that he was making. And they were just the tedious fouls where he's just a little tap at the ankle, just a little bit too late, but he knows exactly what he's doing, and he gets away with those all game. So I was really shocked to see it was midway through the second half, I believe, that somebody picked up the first booking.
Yeah,
I think
it was about the hour
being
mark,
a Newcastle player that picked it up.
I can't remember who it was. Was it Fabian Schär? Someone got a booking. But it took about an hour for him to produce his first card. So I think I probably agree with you where he's probably treated like a friendly. I didn't recognize him. I don't think he's definitely not a Premier League referee. I may be wrong there. Maybe he's EFL league. I don't know who it was. Sure. I can't remember. It doesn't matter now. But it was a shame because he was. We were talking about this in the group chat. He wouldn't let the game flow. He was blown up for everything. He just wasn't producing like his cards. And I think had he got his foot in the game a bit early on and produced a couple of cards, maybe some of those tackles wouldn't have went in later on by the players. You kind of think with players, well, I can get away with this. I'll stick my leg in and I'll see what happens. But it was a shame because he was breaking up the play quite a bit.
But at the end of the day, mate, all that matters is Newcastle go through to the next round, the quarterfinals almost there, Scott. We'll almost have that trip to Wembley.
We do.
Let's see what the cup draw brings up, because no doubt this is probably where we're faced with toughest test in the next round. There was no
tomorrow,
shocks.
isn't it?
Yeah, there was no shocks last night. All the Premier League sides went through against lower league oppositions. So let's see what happens. But mate, we've said this a few times. Bring on whoever, absolutely anybody.
There's no fear.
Fingers crossed. It is a St James's Park clash. We want that. We want that home fixture against anybody. We'll take any single one of them, mate. And I'm confident going into that game. I really am. But yeah, we'll call it a night on this one, mate, because we now have to go and do the preview for the Leicester game.
They'll all be waiting for us.
At the very start, non-stop on the channel this week. Thanks everybody for tuning in. If you do want to like the video, it's massively appreciated. Even more so if you want to become a subscriber. If you want to give a little bit to the channel, you can become a member for just $2.99 a month. You get early access to videos. You get access to the Telegram group, which is full of Newcastle United fans, almost 100 there at the moment, talking all things Newcastle throughout the weeks as well. And you will get early access to the Christmas special, which is going out on the 23rd of December. Thanks, Scott.
No worries. There's some good editing on that Christmas special, I must say.
There's some very good editing on that, mate. There really is. There really is. Thanks, everybody. See you later.
See you, everyone. Ta-da.